any of these videos. Okay, so it is videotaping.
Where we find the videos?
Oh, so it's in files and it's at the top, the community assist.
Oh, the videos.
Oh, the videos?
Yeah.
If you go to the syllabus, there's a link to the videos.
Oh.
And there's also a link to the blog. And the stuff that we're going to write, I'm going to capture what you guys give me for requirements, and I'll put it on the blog. It's this morning, so there'll be this morning's and this afternoon's there. So probably without a whole lot of comment, but maybe some. Okay, so Community Assist is a charity organization that offers one-time loans to community members who find themselves in temporary need. The loans are grouped around predefined services such as food, rent, medical, education, etc. And there are one-time and lifetime limits. So like, I'm not sure what the actual limits are, but like $500 for one time of food or something like that. You know, and you can't, they won't give you any more than that on one time. And maybe 2,000 if you ask them for 4 or 5 times. There's a limit for lifetime amounts too. The goal of the organization is not only to help the client through a hard time, but to help them find better funding sources, you know, so that they can meet their needs. It's funded through donors, and donors can contribute directly to the organization. Each loan, so each grant is reviewed to ensure its authenticity. Donations are not applied to specific services or clients, right? So they just go into a general fund. A portion of the donations is used to support the organization and its employees, and it's the intent of the Community Assist that the amount going to charity should always be at least 75% of total donations, which is actually, this isn't a real organization, but it's actually quite good. A lot of charity organizations are more like 20%. Community Assist has a small number of employees. Some are paid, some are volunteer. Each grant request is reviewed by at least one employee. I actually would change that to 2, but that's there. A request for a grant can be approved, but at a lesser amount, or it can be denied. And all activities of the charity are recorded in the database, and that's actually what we're going to do, is to figure out what are the requirements for that database. So we're just looking at the Community Assist thing here. All right, so what I have, I'm going to bring up like a Word document. And let's think about what some of the data requirements for that are. What kind of data does it need to capture for that? Just, I don't need any organization at this point. What kinds of things? Yeah, so client information, what would that involve? What kind of information would you need to know about clients? Name, address. Do we need their age? Maybe. What else? Yeah, what if, this came up last time, what if they're homeless? Phone, email.
Do you have a checkbox for homeless?
Well, you could either just not make it, you could have something there for homeless where you check a box for homeless. I don't know. Let's put it for right now. When you're doing this kind of gathering, basically you don't want to censor yourself. You want to capture all the stuff you can, and then we can organize it later. What other kind of information do we need?
Maybe the needed amount.
The what?
The money that they need.
Right, so the request amount or the amount they need?
Like the minimum and the maximum?
You probably need to have that in the database, right? The max and min amounts.
The nature of the request.
Right, so the nature of the request, probably, so we said they were around certain categories, so the categories too of what,
Date of participant.
sure, we need the dates of the request. We also probably need, since we're doing dates, the date of the review, right? Because we said they all have to be reviewed.
And also the date of the request too. They track when it was brought in, when it was reviewed, and when it was paid out.
Oh yeah, so the pay date,
Well, the submission, the review date, and then the date paid.
Yeah. We might need their income. I'm not actually, so possibly.
How many times the same person would want to pull the fund?
Who approved it?
Who approved it? What other kinds of stuff?
Do we need to capture kind of requirements around basically like the lifetime? They can be 4 times that 200 and twice that 2,000.
Well, actually, so a couple of things. This kind of relates to how many times they did it, and also like if they're meeting them, you can calculate in them. You can do running calculations. So generally, the general rule is not to store the results of calculations because you can always calculate it with live numbers at any time. There are a couple exceptions to that. But overall, you can always, like if you wanted to know how many times they've requested, you just do a query that counts how many times they've requested it.
There's another amount we need, which is the actual amount,
Right, so we've got the
paid amount.
request amount.
Because it does say they may approve it lesser amount.
They may approve a lesser amount and they may pay nothing. They may not approve at all. So yeah, paid amount.
Track gender.
Do we need to know their demographics, like gender? We have age. I don't know.
If they're a family or single. Or,
So this stuff might all, part of this, I'll put this under a general heading of demographics, but you'd have to get like, demographics would usually be like, oops, I can't type.
The language wouldn't actually, I mean, it might also be a demographic, but it's either being able to communicate.
That's true. And with this, the demographics could be important if they're doing any kind of federal funding.
It could be optional.
And it could be optional. Yes, I think it's always optional, isn't it, on those? Maybe not.
I did my thing and it's not taken, and that's the name and then usually your student number.
No, it's not. Well, into what? It's not in these computers.
Login?
Yeah, just right. Do other user. Sorry, and then just do your first letter of your first name. Hold up.
I did that.
Okay, and then go to password. Capital P. Yeah, so SS W 0 RD1. Try that. And then it should say you have to change it. Well, our systems are not hooked into the same systems as the school, rest of the school. All right, so how many times approved? What other pieces of information do we need?
Education level.
Possibly. That's kind of in the demographics.
Loans are for education, so possibly it's for education, so it's.
Oh, so yeah, I mean, if you did, the database I actually created from this is a lot simpler, but that's okay.
They said we need to get a track of the donors.
Right, so we need the donors. You're right. I was just going to go there. We need information about the donors. Part of what we need about the donors is same kind of thing, name, possibly email, address. An address would probably be broken up into like apartment, city, well, probably is apartment, street, city, state, and you might have something because they could have, it could be an organization as well as a person, or a donor might have two addresses, personal and business.
So is there a place to go to get best practice for things like that? We created dozens of databases with an address. You one address field or two address fields or
So best practice isn't necessarily the most convenient. best practice is to have an address field that's separate from the user field, and tie it to it with the person number or whatever, so that they can have as many addresses as needed. That way you don't have to say 2 addresses or 1, because if you do 2, most of them are going to be blank on the second.
But even within one address, sometimes you have 2 fields for the street information.
Yeah, I would probably just do, so I'd probably, it's a question, it is a question, I'd probably do it like an apartment or street kind of field, and then a street name field.
The route, like there's best practice for naming conventions and things, I wondered if there was some known resource to kind of go to get that everybody is resolved as kind of the consensus best way to do it.
There probably are. I'm not sure what that would be though. A lot of it depends on your.
A main contact person.
Possibly, particularly if it's a business, an organization.
Donation amount.
Certainly the donation amount. Did you have one?
I was thinking, yeah, an identifier for the company of the donor, like a TIN, a tax identification number, and then would we also want like a social security number or something to track?
Well, so do we need that? We might. I didn't do that, but you might need the social security number for tax purposes. Although, when you donate, do you give your social security number?
You can write it off on your taxes.
I think they just send you a thing saying that with their tax number. Yeah.
To get back to the client, with employment, to make sure that person's employed.
I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily. They don't necessarily have to be employed. I don't think, but we could.
I thought we were named donors as like different organizations.
Well, they can be individuals or organizations, I guess.
So then you should have a field for matching gifts if it's an individual that works for a company that provides matching.
Maybe. I never thought of that. I know that PBS does that. In my database, donors are just people, but with the organization, yeah. Still not there?
It's already,
Just change your password. So
yeah, I tried doing it, sometimes you can actually do it, it's not.
So your password
It's
has.
saying, what it's saying is, it's saying, unable to something Dominion. Something, when you put in a new passcode, and I did that, and I put that up there on the board. Oh, this is so embarrassing, sorry guys.
Well, that's the old password, and then
Yeah, that, and then you're supposed to put in a new one, and then you're supposed to confirm it, and I've done it 3 times. and
does it have a capital letter, lowercase letter, a number, and a non-alphabet?
It has a number, it doesn't have a uppercase, so I have to do that.
It has to have an uppercase character. It has to have like an @ sign or a pound sign or something, some non-numeric, alphanumeric character, and it has to have a number. That's just it's stupid, but it's the security rules on the server.
Sorry.
That's okay. So we lost track. Where is the? And it's not crucial that you be in right now, and I'll help you get in a minute. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't get what is matching gift.
Oh, so some companies, if you donate, will match the donation. Do they do it to anything? I know they do it to PBS.
Approved, there's a list
Of approved places.
and often you can get them to match someone else, but there's more paperwork to go through to get them to match it. Not on the list.
So, like, if you donated $200 to PBS channel, Microsoft will also donate $200.
It'd be useful to know like what kind of donor, like how many times they've donated, if they're a regular donor.
And you can do all that with queries.
Right.
So you don't have to store that as information, but you will need to create a query for it.
Kind of donor, if you have like categories, that would be useful.
Category could be useful to know whether it's corporate or personal.
So
Yeah.
How do we expand a certain group of donors.
How about number of people in the family if they have kids?
For the client,
For the client.
possibly. Again, kind of in the demographic.
Yeah, more fields to add in there.
Yeah. I suppose, I mean, you could want to know if they're married. You could do the whole back sheet of this, I suppose. This is all just for government reporting, all in the back there. So if you're doing government stuff, you might actually have to have something like this. You know, what does it have? It has sexual orientation, and they have a lot of them. Gender.
Have a I-99 status.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you'd have to provide them.
And then they have ethnicity, and then work status, prior level of education, family status. I don't know, they have a lot. And I think they actually try to capture even more at different places. What else? Is there anything else that we would need for data requirements? Some of what you were talking about. What?
Donation date.
Oh, certainly. The donation date. Do we have donation amount somewhere, right?
You're gonna have a whole other category for employees.
Right. So I think we would need to know a bit about the employees in this database, although as a constraint on it, I would not make it a human resources database. But you will need some employee information in there just to know who's reviewing and.
Do you need to know about the grant?
What about the grants?
Isn't it redistributed as grants in the grant?
Yeah, it's the redistributed as grants. I thought we had something. The paid amount, I think, is actually like you might just. The paid amount would be the distributed grant. The point is actually just to see the process here. So we'll get more fields than we probably would need right now. Is there anything else though in just broad fields that were big that we're missing? So one of the things about not human resources, you might have a whole separate database for the human resource thing. It is possible to link databases, so you could get some basic employee information across to this one without having to retype it, or you could just retype just the employee name and position maybe, and not all the rest of the stuff. Other things, it's okay. So let's think about this part you guys were sort of working on already too. Some of the reporting requirements, and then we'll talk about security. Reporting requirements are what do you want to do with this data? What do you want to see from it? So what's just a few of there are probably dozens and dozens of these, but let's just think.
Report on who donated funds.
So you might want to know who donated, especially since we have organizations. You probably want to know how much was donated.
Probably between a certain time period.
Right, probably per year, per month, yeah, per quarter.
Yeah. How many loans were denied?
You probably want to know, yeah, how many loans granted, how many denied.
Sort of by category.
So how many per category, and probably things like how much per category. You had, in the back, you had a idea behind, oh well, it's on our phone. You had an idea of that for a reporting thing earlier. Did you guys have others? Okay. There would be a lot of these. Like you'd probably want to know, how much was donated, probably total per year, per month, per quarter. Similar kind of things, loans granted and denied, how many per category, how much per category, per year, per quarter, per month. I mean, there'd be a lot of these reports. And again, this is the point of the database to some extent. It's just to see, is to track that and get these reports out so that you have information about what you're doing. Let's think real quickly about the security requirements, and then we'll look at the assignment, and then I'll get you logged into security requirements. When I talk, I type what I talk. That's a problem sometimes. What kinds of security issues would there be with this?
We should have access to the data.
Yeah, who should have access to what data is always the key question. So one would assume that if you had a web presence, the donors can enter their own data, right? And they should be able to edit their own data. But they probably shouldn't be able to see or edit anyone else's data, right? And the same with the client. They probably need to be able to enter their request and all that information. Should they be able to edit it after the fact? Some places like this, some don't. I mean, those are kinds of security things. The employees, if we have different categories of employees, are there some that should be able to do some things and not others? You know, so, I mean, there's all those kinds of things. What kind of information is you have to protect in this? Right, you have all the clients. You might not necessarily want all that personal information distributed anywhere. So all the client information is probably donor information. They probably don't want they may or may not want their information public. Probably not though. If they do want it public, it'd be up to them to advertise it, not you. So you have to protect all that personal information. Again, if you were taking in credit cards, I would pay some other third-party company to do that, even especially in this case, because you're not likely to be able to handle it that well as a small nonprofit. Other things that what things should everyone be able to see? That might be one thing too. Yeah, well, so there's probably a public presence if you have a website or something. And the website isn't the database, but it's the front end of the database. So they're talking to the database through the website. So what the public access would be, they probably should be able to see most of the reports, right? You would want the public to go in and say, see, we have donated this much. We've helped this many people doing these things. All that kind of information is actually good public knowledge, right? So they should be able to access many of the reports. They probably won't be able to change or modify or enter anything unless they register as a donor or a client. They should be able to maybe see the categories of things that they donate, that are available. Is there anything else? I mean, we will at some point spend a lot more time on security, because really what you need to do, but this is sort of once you've designed it, is go through each table and say who has access to this information and how much access do they have, and you should do it for every single table in there. Okay, you about done with this? Yeah, I will post this actually on the blog. I'll show you how to get there.
Thank you.
The blog, just real quickly, I'm going to go to here, I'm going to close this file. If you go to the syllabus I think I showed this before. There's a link at the top of the syllabus to the blog. And you can see that this is what we did in the morning class when we did the same exercise. So, and I will post the afternoon class too. Okay, let's look at the assignments. And then we'll start that. I don't expect you to get too far with it today, although the last class did pretty well in a short time. So there were some confusions, so let me try to get there and describe it. So this is, we're going to make a group for, let's see if I can get this up on screen a little better, for this module. All right, so the PDF, which we can look at in a second, is basically just the description of the problem set. It's not part of the assignment as such, it's just except to describe what the Vince's vinyl is. Relational design is a PowerPoint, which we may or may not do. I'm going to cover all the stuff in it, but I don't know that I'll do it as a PowerPoint because they get pretty dull. Normalization is also the same thing, kind of a PowerPoint. The first assignment is the SQL Server requirements presentation. And it's basically to do what we just did, which is brainstorm what the requirements for this database are, for the data and things. And I'll show you the Vincent's vinyl in a moment. Before we do that, under people, and it looks different for you. So I have a look that isn't like your look. But under the project groups, there's a Vincent Vinyl group. And notice there's like 10 of these. This is the wrong, oh, I'm still in the morning. I'm still in the morning one. So that being said, they're just numbers like this. And I do want people to join a group, and it's a bit chaotic. I let people join their own group. So you can basically, in your view, you have a join on each of these where you can join a group. Don't do it right yet. We'll do it in a few minutes. So you can figure out what among yourselves which group number it is, and you can join in. Groups there should be no more than 4 people. As I said, it's a bit chaotic, and I may next time just either have you tell me what groups you're going to be in or just assign it. We'll see how this goes. But when I want you to be in the group, for the Vincent Vinyl group, that's for all of the things in the SQL Server module, which will be the Vincent's thing. So that'll be for the server requirements presentation, for the entity relation diagram, and then revising it, and then creating and testing the database. So those will all be one group, and then you can do entirely different groups for the MySQL, and entirely different groups for the other. If you decide after today that you don't want to be in the group that you ended up in, you can switch Monday. But after a certain point, that gets to be problematic. So it's better to do these in groups. It takes some talking. Now the presentation is basically, let's look at Vince's vinyl, and then we'll talk about the presentation. It's not meant to be a big presentation. That's the big thing. So this is just a PDF about the project. It's just informational. So Vince's Vinyl is a small shop that sells vinyl records. Okay, and so up till now, Vince's, the owner, has kept track of his sales and purchases in a spiral notebook. He priced things based on what he thought they were worth, often with only a vague memory of what he paid for it. And he's generous with discounts and sometimes overly generous when he's purchasing. And his friends are afraid he's going to go bankrupt, basically. So the idea is the database is to manage all the store's business as it relates to purchasing, storing, and selling the vinyl albums. It should manage all the purchases, including who he bought them from and when he bought them. And it should also contain all of the albums in the store, the inventory, and it should handle all the point of sale information. In addition, customers can request items, so there's requests that are not in at the moment. And you should keep a list of such requests and contact information for the customers. And it would also be nice to just generally keep a list of customers who are willing to give their names and emails so you can spam them once in a while. Say we got some new stuff in. And he has 2 or 3 part-time employees at any one time, and they handle the shop. They're allowed to sell albums, but not to purchase. And this, again, it will not be a human resources database in there. Because all the albums are used, and I think for simplicity we're going to keep them all used, then each one has to be treated individually because they have different conditions, right? You might have 5 copies of the same album, but one might be in pristine shape and another one might be warped. They're worth different amounts of money, so each one will be treated individually. Don't mix in new with this because that'll make your life way more complicated. New inventory is treated very differently. You need an accounting base for that. Albums are rated, as mint, excellent, good, fair, and poor. And the base price for an album is 150% above the price that he paid for it. That may sound like a lot, but it's actually a pretty low markup. You'd be surprised what businesses mark things up as. So if you buy 10 albums, you get a discount, 25% discount. We're not going to build the front end. These tasks are what we're going to do, but not all in this one assignment. So that's sort of the...
You show that the calculation in there, 150%.
On top of the, so if you pay
on
top of,
okay.
So it's 150% above what he paid for.
Okay.
Not 150% of what he...
150% of the price.
Yeah, 150%. I know I said it wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you're doing something like that, are you gonna have there's several kinds of record shops. There are just those that they bring in nice vinyl and then they might sell it for maybe a copy for 30, 40, 50 bucks. But then you have those that are really into the whole vintage thing, and there really is a book that you literally go in and there's collector vinyl, and that tends to be more than 40 or 50 bucks.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can do it either way. They're just used copies, right? So, and I'm also thinking that Vince will take in stuff that isn't quite collector worthy.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, well, my daughter prefers vinyl too.
Yeah.
I was actually so glad to get rid of vinyl many years ago.
I love it. That's what I did.
So, have you ever moved? You had 3.5 tons of vinyl.
I had to do it from Philadelphia all the way back over here on the bus. I had 200 albums. It was very wow.
Yeah, I think I had many more than 200 albums, but I also had 3,000 or 4,000 books. So it's moving is a nightmare.
It was just a small business at DJ, but I know people who have whole
also
of vinyl.
Yeah, and also they make vinyl good now. When in the 70s, vinyl sucked. It was so flimsy, so bad, and it would scratch like that. The vinyl they make now is a much higher quality vinyl. Yeah.
Or the 170 weight.
So anyway, it's a lot. Actually, although the sound isn't as good, digital.
No, that's not true because I DJ. That's not true. That's not true. I'm 41 years old. I look 20, but it's the type of needle that you use.
Needle matters too.
The more it grooves into the album, the less that it will skip, and it scoops up the sound. But then you end up scratching your needles. Your needle ends up scratching your album over a course of time if it's cutting in to gather the whole sound.
I actually kind of like the laser needles. Because they don't scratch. But yeah, generally though, I just do digital now. And I'm old enough and deaf enough that I don't need the lossless. All right. But you can decide the rules somewhat to what you want here in terms of how they're doing it. I do know, I mean, I had condition matters a lot. I had an original rubber sole that would have been worth a fortune, except that I played it too much, and it was scratched and nasty. I thought. There are lots of things.
Are we going to this the first budget?
Yes.
So maybe this well,
Right, and it'll be, so when you come back, even if it's Monday, we'll get you in the group and we'll get going. Yeah. So, anyway, the assignments. My brain. So the first one is basically these presentation, and again, the idea of the presentation. So this is the assignment. We're just going to get the requirements for the database, and the first one is Vince's vinyl database. And again, it's just a brainstorm at this point. So all the things that the database needs to do in order to succeed, so all the columns it needs to store and the security requirements. There are business rules listed. If you think of more of them, you can add them. You know, as I said, you can add some flavor to this that's your own. When I say the presentation, I'm not asking you to do a PowerPoint. I'm not asking you to do anything fancy. I'm thinking that if you present your requirements just as a text up here where you can see, people can see it, you can get some feedback beyond me. In the past, I just circled around and I said, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? But I think it might be better if the whole class can say that. You don't have to agree to everything, and not every version of this database has to be identical. Because a lot of it can vary depending on what you define as the business needs, right? And they can be a little bit different. They should all be somewhat in the same ballpark, but they can vary somewhat. But I think the only point of this is to get, of the presentation, is to get feedback from the rest of the class. If the whole class sits there and says nothing, that won't work very well. So I do want you guys to, we'll see how it goes. But that's the idea anyway, so that you get more feedback than just mine. You'll still get mine, but more than just mine. So for the presentation, you'll get the points if you just show something on the screen. I'm not going to judge you on your eloquence or your, how pretty it is. It's just a matter of, making sure that nobody has any big gaps, thinking, if there's things that people didn't think of. And I think that the discussion can be useful to help refine these lists. The next assignment would be then to start designing it, right? So, and we'll talk, before you do that, we'll talk about what design involves. I will give you time to work on this on Monday. So I said, if you can join some groups now, and this will be totally chaotic, if you go to people and sign up. So just decide who you want to work with. And this will be hard if you can't log in, but maybe we can have, I'll see if I can get you logged in here in a moment. Yeah. There should be the other one too. Is it down at the bottom?
Oh, yeah.
Do the Vincent's vinyl, not the Python and not the show tracker. Show tracker is for NoSQL and the Python is for the MySQL. So the Vincent's vinyl one. Let me come around and first I'll see if I can get you logged in. And then go ahead and, if you can get a group together, that would be sufficient for the day. I will give you time on Monday. If you want to start, you can. If you need to, I will drag people into groups, but
So I just clicked one.
yeah, the groups are up to 4 people. I don't want any less than 2. Let's see if I can mark it. Okay.
Awesome. I don't know how I zoomed in though.
Oh, leave that. Leave that.
See some Python, if you,
And you saw that.
yeah, I think you might have.
Some non-numerical.
Oh, this one I remember.
Yeah, so yeah, so Python.
So.
Because it's supposed to be. You can be in multiple groups.
Am I understanding this project?
Let's press the first one.
Yeah.
Because when you first up, it shows you how to do that. So it shows you the columns are actually.
Yeah, these are. Well, so the software creates the design.
Are we all in the same group then?
I think so.
I mean, it's not hard. It's just that
I just.
Should be able to get like a discussion.
I'm at a dilemma, but I had so many problems with web operating.
So these are the groups.
Yeah. If you, then you can do that, like, you know, like post on where. Yeah, and then you can like create that document and all put it together. Yeah, yeah. So if you look at this, then we can basically just use docs. So, right. Should be able to-
Okay. So you can set up documents and
Then we can all like sit there forever.
So what has to happen?
So if you go back to where the start.
It's behind what you see.
And go visit, and that'll take you to our group. And then that's where the documents go. You want to make sure you're on the.
yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay, cool. Never mind. Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go double check this.
And they had something where they could get cells.
Yeah, the only way it's cool. I didn't know you could do it that way. So that makes sense.
I want to set it up.
Okay, so here's just copy and paste from his assignment. And I'll just start typing
I think it's easy, but I've never done it, so I
Okay.
don't see it.
Read through this with us, or-
I mean, you just come in and purchase, you gotta be able to, just basic functions for the user that come in, that's a console against. And then that's, it gets, like, Joule download is terrible. You, if I can show you, we have it as a service. It was one of our retail shops, which is terrible. And they put all this detailed information about the album and exactly what the genre. We had this the album. It was just on and on every single one of the tracks, and I don't. Yeah, it was just too complicated.
So so one of the things.
They do require
Did you just take it off?
Yeah.
Yeah. So as I said, once, so let's.
I'm not seeing, so I'm not seeing a file in there. So you might have to go into the groups and then you upload it to that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, if it got uploaded to different sites of groups. When people, sorry. Yeah, the groups.
I did that. That's my editors.
Then go all the way down to ours and hit the view, that should take you to there it is. And that's where you're gonna wanna have the file there. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, then we can see the, and then we can all like work on it. And so as you work on it, I'll update the file and should you have changes. Then we can have more.
It's on the file.
So you have to download the PDF once you're to the desktop. Yeah, so download that. So you pick whatever.
Got it. It's easy but not easy.
It's kind of a cumbersome. Sure. Yeah, Monday we're gonna be working on it. Yeah, but if you want to, like, over days, work hard and stuff, yeah.
I'll get it figured out.
For now,
Almost like they threw it down in the download folder. So it can be Windows East.
so what else do you know?
Yeah, and then you go to download.
No, I didn't change it, because you remember what they were doing last year, it was like, they didn't switch around, it was like.
See you on Monday.
Last year, then you logged in, then when you got on campus, they switched it, and then it was like the name, and the letters. I probably will have to go in and go see this.
Do that.
Just to fit with
Because it's really good. You got work to do.
Okay, it's there
in
now.
the middle of that.
This is final.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
Maybe you can.
I'm thinking it helped other people, so other people say, "Nah, I'm not sure."
Just me, just to make sure.
That's fine. How are you? And then everybody else said that.
Next page is PDF. So just open it really quick.
Calculating.
The class is starting.
Okay, have weird thing to say on Wednesday, but have a good weekend. If I don't see you tomorrow, with a few of you I will.
Starts a little bit
I'll
tomorrow,
restate it.
Yeah.
Okay, a good point.
because I just have class by the afternoon.
Uh,
I don't have class.
That's kind of creepy though, that's really weird, because.
well, it's just partially, so I was looking for birthday presents for my daughter and she wanted vinyl.
Do your daughter collect vinyl? I have a piece of, I have, I'm gonna get rid of it, it's a copy of, Elton John, it's what is it, Captain Fantastic.
Yeah, I remember that album. I don't know that my daughter's much into Elton John.
Are you Elton John? Because I have it. I don't, it has one disc to it, I don't know if it had two, but it had one, and I do like Elton John. And it's just something that I'm collecting, and it's a collectible, it's in really good condition. The album is not scratched. I listened to it twice, won't listen to it again. It's really a good album.
That's a more important, not as good.
It's Captain Fantastic. I don't,
As
I'm
opposed to a
kind
genre,
of, it's not a part of my,
kind of a genre, but not-
you don't know Captain It's it's Captain Fantastic and what is it, the Dirty Cowboy is what it's.
Yeah, it's one of
It's
his
not-
early. It's a really early album.
It is a good album of Elton John when he was still somewhat not so weird. He's kind of weird now. Like I don't even like him so much. He's weird now. But it's a good, the art is what, because I design cover albums for art, for record labels, and I got my portfolio in here.